Thank you all so much for agreeing to help with content validity reviews here in the College of Education at Faulkner University. I'm Leslie Cowell. I am the Dean for the college, and stakeholder involvement is so very important to us. And so we have kind of pulled your names as excellent examples of teachers in the field, and we're so thankful that you have agreed to help with some of this process as we review our assessment instruments that we're using in the College of Ed for content validity. So not to get too technical at all, that I thought, it may have been a while for some of you. And so I wanted to just explain what we're doing. So what is content validity? So content validity is actually helping to answer the question, does the assessment instrument actually measure what it intends to measure? And that's what we need your help with. So we need your help to decide and give us feedback if the assessments that we're giving to our pre-service teacher candidates is actually aligned to the standards that we think it's aligned to. And we want to get stakeholder involvement in that. So an example would be, let's say you give your students a test and say, this test is going to be on information from Chapter 2, but nothing on the test is actually covered in Chapter 2, this test would not have content validity. So it won't provide you with the measure of how well your students understood the information from Chapter 2 because nothing from Chapter 2 is actually in it. And as an institution of higher ed, we have to be able to provide documentation that our pre-service candidates are meeting certain standards. And we have created assessments that we think are aligned with these standards so we can verify that. But we want some outside input or content validity reviews to ensure that these instruments are in fact aligned with the standards that we think they are. So this is where we need your help. So as practitioners in the P12 schools, we need your input to ensure that the assessments we've created are aligned with the Alabama State Department of Education required standards for pre-service teachers. And so for this, you will be given an instrument or a rubric that we use along with the standards that have been aligned to it. And we need for you to look at the instrument and decide the following things for each indicator. And I'll give you an example in just a minute. So we need you to decide three things. One, if the assessment indicator is actually aligned with the standard. So you feel like the standard that we have placed with it and the indicator go together. The second thing is we need you to decide if the indicator is important to measure the standard. So you may look at the standard and look at the indicator and think, this is really pointless, and I don't think that it needs to be included. And then the third thing is do you think the indicators are clear? Do you think they're clearly written and clearly understandable? We obviously give these rubrics to our pre-service teachers so they know what they have to do on their assignment. And so we want to make sure that each of the indicators are clear. And you will rate these indicators on a scale of 1 to 4. So here's what the content validity response form looks like. This is the front page. So you'll just list your name as the reviewer and your position. The title of the assessment that you'll be reviewing is listed there. For this example, it's the teacher candidate assessment rubric. You may have something different. They're all aligned the same way. So for the first one, like I mentioned, you're going to look at standard alignment with the indicator. And so on a scale of 1 to 4. So number 1 would be that the item is not aligned with the standard at all. You don't see how the indicator and the standard go together. The second, if you rated a 2, so if you put a number 2, you're going to be saying, I think that there needs to be some major revisions done for this to be aligned. If you rank it as a 3, you'll be saying that it needs some minor revisions. And number 4, you'll be saying that the item is in fact aligned with the standards. The second thing we need you to do is look at the importance of the item, measuring the assessment indicator on the scale of 1 to 4. So do you think that this item is actually important, or do you think it's not necessary for measuring the standard? So the first one would be you do not think it's necessary. If you rated a number 2, you'd be saying that it does provide some information, but it's not essential to measuring the standard. Number 3, you think that it's useful but not essential. Or number 4, that you do think it is essential to measure the standard. And the third thing, like I mentioned, is the level of clarity. So is it clear? And so if you rate it a 1, it's not clear. 2, needs major revisions. 3, needs minor revisions. Or 4, you feel like it's clearly written. So here's a kind of a snapshot of what you're going to be getting. So if you look at the top, that's the rubric. So you're going to be given the actual instrument that you're evaluating. If you look on the bottom, there's the response sheet. So this is what the response sheet looks like. So if you look at the top, it says LM1, constructs grade level appropriate opportunities to support student learning. And then you can see across the indicators there. And then on your response form, it says LM1, and we are saying that we think that LM1 is aligned with the ACTS standard number 1. And so I've provided the ACTS standard here, Standard 1 Learner Development, which says the candidate understands how learners grow and develop, recognizing that patterns of learning and development vary individually within and across the cognitive, linguistic, social, emotional, and physical areas, and designs and implements developmentally appropriate and challenging learning experiences. And so you would decide for LM1 if you think that indicator that we have, that a pre-service candidate is able to construct grade level appropriate opportunities to support student learning, if you feel like that is aligned with Standard 1. And so on your response form, standard alignment, you would decide on a scale of 1 to 4, 4 being the highest, 1 being the lowest. If you think it's aligned, and you will just write 1, 2, 3, or 4 in that box. Number 2, you'll decide, do you think that this is important in measuring the assessment indicator? And you'll rank it 1, 2, 3, or 4. And then you'll decide if the rubric is clear, if it's written clearly, and you understand what this rubric is asking for related to that standard, and you'll do 1, 2, 3, or 4. And then provide any comments related to that assessment indicator if you feel like you need to. There's a part at the bottom of the response form for you to provide any other feedback. So you might say there might be some additional items you would recommend that we include to measure the standards. Is there items you think we should delete? Or would you provide any other information that you think would be helpful in assessing this standard with the rubric? And if you don't have any suggestions, you can just write in none. But we'd love to hear if there's anything that you think should be included. Thank you so much. If you have any questions about this, please don't hesitate to contact our office. And we just, again, very much appreciate your help in ensuring that we are putting out the best quality teachers into the field as possible. Have a great day.